And we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and also Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Thank you so much for listening to all of our shows, including everyone out there, not only with my great interviews, as always, each week with this awesome guest, each and every week that we do it, but the many episodes that I've already recorded for the NBA draft and NBA draft coverage. I cannot thank you enough for your support for that. Please, if you get a chance, if you can, on any one of our shows, give us that 5-star review, like and subscribe. We just truly appreciate it because you've been getting a lot more content coming your way, including a big NBA mock draft where not only I will have Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies. I will have his brother, also from NBA Draft Junkies, and Stone Hansen from DraftSite.com, and also Michael Vissenberg from TheStepien.com. All those guys are going to be in there along with myself. We're going to have a NBA mock draft. We're all going to be able to pick all 1 through 30. So be one of us picking number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we rotate back again up to number 30. So you're going to hear a full NBA first round mock draft coming up this week. I cannot wait for it. It's just been so exciting. I'm just looking so forward to it, seeing all the draft choices and whatnot. So hopefully you've been getting a lot of great NBA draft content to fill up your time out there, seeing what's coming out there on the NBA horizon. But with me today is a good man indeed. It is my friend. I know him as Tom Wong, but you know him as the guy behind Lakerholics.net. You got to check out what he's doing today at Lakerholics.net, plus a new site coming forward in the not-too-distant future. It is LakerTom. LakerTom, always great to have you back on the program once again.
It's great to be here, Gerald.
Well, I'll tell you what, things are opening up, and that's a hot button issue right now, whether you're for or against that. I don't want to go too much into politics because, we've strayed into that before, but I know it's going to bleed in a little bit on this episode because it relates to the NBA, because we all want the NBA to come back. And we talked about on our last program the 25-day theory, or one of the ideas out there is 25-day training camp, so to speak, and then hopefully doing another proposed idea maybe here in Vegas for all the games and whatnot. I hear your thoughts. And everything else is, in certain states, certain areas, not to say everything else, but certain things are being opened up this week in states across the country. Some states across the country, I should say. What are your thoughts as far as how the NBA should approach this concept? Because they weren't on the President's Council about how to go ahead and be a part of the economy. That was a slight on their part, and seeing how they're seeing as how they're going to have their own agenda. How should the NBA portray this out? How should the NBA go ahead and lead the way, so to speak, to going ahead and renewing some semblance of our sports concepts out there?
Well, I think there's a lot of signs that are pretty optimistic that the conditions of, I know that there's concern about opening up too early, and political pressures from Trump and some of the right-wing governors to get back. And I think all of us really want to see things get back to at least as close a version of a new normal that we can possibly have. But I think when you look at the realities of the problems that we have with testing, the problems that we have with being able to trace and take care of making sure that people who get infected, that we can close down any loops that they create. I think that all of those things are really pointing toward a very slow comeback. I'm sure there's going to be some situations where, people want to get their hair cut. They want to be able to go out to dinner. They want to be able to get together with friends. I know that some of my friends have been talking about people who've been locked into their home with just, let's say, their husband and wife, talking about maybe getting together with another couple people and creating a quarantine, if you will, of people. That there might be 4 or 5 people that all still stay very close with respect to not letting anybody outside the group get involved with social distancing, making sure that they're careful, but at least starting to break open and starting to have a little bit of life. And I think we have to be very careful with that. But I think the signs are there, and I think that most of the medical experts, most of the public health experts are basically being very cautious. I think most of the Democratic governors are being extremely cautious. Trump has put out these guidelines of 14 days before you open things up. We're already seeing states like Georgia sometimes violating those guidelines, and without having a history of reducing the number of infections, they're going to open things up a little bit. So I think we'll have some setbacks then, because the problem when you open it up is that people are vulnerable and people are going to get infected, and we're going to have rebounds where there's going to be new centers of that we can't tell. You know, we need to get to 4 or 5 times, maybe 10 times as many tests as we currently have the ability to do. But despite all of those things, I'm pretty optimistic that things look promising for the NBA to possibly open up. I think they have a whole range of different ideas. I think Adam Silver has been smart to say that it's going to be, you know, the end of May before we can even really have enough data to make an intelligent decision on what we should do. I know Kenny the Jet had a program that was just a 30-day program with a starts off with all 30 teams being in the playoffs, and that gives everybody a chance to play, you know, 70 games, I guess, or for their season. It also then, you know, you'd have a 5-game semifinal when you got down to 4 teams in a 7-game final series. So there's one option that, you know, could take place in 1 month in Las Vegas or the Bahamas or in some venue that was very controlled. And then hopefully by the end of May, we'll have gotten many of the areas past their peaks. We'll have hopefully made some progress on testing. We'll hopefully have made progress on being able to have staffing for the states to trace contacts and these things, and then hopefully we can see something happen to open it up. I'm still hopeful that the Lakers will get their opportunity to win a championship, and I think that they could even be in a better position. You know, I'm looking for silver linings, and a couple of the silver linings that I think are in play are that LeBron and AD, if they can be rested and healthy for that, you know, whatever it happens to be, a 30-game or a 10-game run to the championship, that's a big advantage, because they played 63 games. LeBron missed 3 games. AD missed 8 games. Both of them have a whole series of nagging injuries. You put the miles that LeBron has, and you look at how he recovered from last year when he had that summer off. And so 2 or 3 months off, you know, for the Lakers could be an advantage. They're a veteran team. They had a lot of players who were injured. They had a guy, Dion Waiters, who could be a big factor that possibly this time could get him back into game shape and so forth. So I think there's advantages to the Lakers, both in the short term and the long term, silver linings, if you will, that make me very eager to get into the season. You know, it's the old tried and true expression that you never know what you have until you miss it. And I miss basketball. I miss basketball dearly, more than I miss the Yankees, more than I miss, you know, football or any of the other sports. More than I really miss going out and seeing friends and so forth, you know. I still talk to friends. We still FaceTime. We still talk to our grandkids through the sliding glass door, you know. And there are silver linings even to that. I've spent time with my wife that I probably would have been watching sporting events and things. And so, you know, and I watch my son spending time with his kids that right at an age when those kids are ready to fly off and not I want to have anything to do with mom and dad at that point in time. So there's a lot of good things that we can see every time we have all of the great things that seem to happen in life as far as society goes seem to come out of some tragedy. You know, we had the depressions that generally lead to resurgences in the economic times. World wars generally lead to long areas of peace. So I'm hoping that not only will the NBA get its opportunity and the Lakers their opportunity to compete for another championship, but I'm also hoping that we'll see a political and social revolution in this country that will that will turn things around, where we'll suddenly see people embracing universal health care. We'll see a campaign and people all of a sudden coming together to save the planet and revive the economy with a Green New Deal. We'll see basically the inspiration to make America something better than it used to be, and better than it is right now, with all of the problems and the dissension that we have and all of the battles that we're having back and forth with all of our citizens. So right now I'm trying to remain positive. It's the force that I'm trying to pull through on Lakerholics.net. It's the same thing that I want to expose, or I want to basically control things in the podcasts that we do, which is that, despite all of the problems and the clouds hanging over us, there are silver linings, and I believe in them.
Well, if you're trying to find a silver lining, you could say that one of the silver linings is that oil in my lifetime has never been this low. And as we're recording this, it's just amazing that I can even say this, but it's actually at a negative level for the first time, I think,
They're
ever.
paying people to take the oil away.
Yes, so it's at negative $37.63 as we're going ahead and recording this. But it's so funny. CNN, it quickly says in an article, no, oil, just because it's lower than $0 doesn't mean the gas station will pay you to fill up your tank. Right. So people, I'm sure the comment sections were probably the first thing that they said was like, you know what? I can't wait to go stop by my Costco and get paid by Costco.
Have them pay you to fill up.
Yeah, well, exactly.
There's also pollution, the clear skies. And you look at some of these cities, even in China, areas that used to see nothing but cloudy skies. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley down in Southern California, in Monrovia, Arcadia area, right up next to the San Gabriel Mountains. And 9 out of 10 days when I was growing up, you could not see those dang mountains, even though they were, a mile or two away because of the smog. Now it's incredibly clear, and you see the pictures and then traffic accidents. The California has saved over $1 billion just in the cost of repairs for traffic accidents and so forth. And also a good number of lives have been saved as a result of not having so many fatalities on the highway. So there always are silver linings if you look for them, and I think one of the big silver linings that I'm looking forward to is being able to watch basketball again. My God, it's just, you really don't understand how badly you miss some of those things. I mean, I can understand the people who are so tired of it all that they're out there protesting. I can see some of why they're doing that. Aside from the negative aspects of why they're doing it, it's just human nature to a certain extent that, I know my daughter-in-law is constantly asking us, what can I get you at the store? And I know she wants to go out there. She's a perennial shopper, She's the type of woman that you never let her drive the car when you're going out to some place, because she's going to stop 2 or 3 places on the way back. But it's, you really start to learn the things that you're missing. I'm sure a lot of people miss going to work. They miss the camaraderie of going out to a restaurant with friends. I miss not having my hair cut, and meeting with my barber and so forth. I miss being able to, coach my granddaughter in AAU basketball. But at the same time, there are other things that balance that out. And the biggest one is that I think all of these moves for shelter in place and social distancing have actually saved lives, and made things easier for all of those heroes on the front lines, the medical people, the ambulance drivers, the firemen, the policemen, the people in the grocery stores who've got to stand there and take all that dirty money from people and risk getting infected themselves. We're saving lives by staying home. I haven't been out. I went to the doctor once to get my ear cleaned out. And that was it. And I stopped for a drive-through, chance to get some KFC on the way home, which my wife really jumped all over me for. But I had my mask on, and I tried to do that in a safe manner. I just got done decontaminating all of the groceries that were delivered by my daughter-in-law, who went out shopping, And so, you do the things that you have to do. And I think we're on the verge. I think we're getting close to starting to see what's going to be our new normal, which is probably going to be only a few people in a store at a time, in a line outside, standing 6 feet away. It's going to be sporting events are going to be on television only. I think that's for sure. I don't know how many people I know who would be willing to go sit in a movie theater, even if there were, 3 or 4 seats in between everybody and nobody behind you in the same row.
Have you watched Outbreak? Unfortunately, I worked on that movie. It freaked everybody out as far as going to a movie.
I saw it before, but I've watched so many. I must have watched at least 15 or 20 pandemic dystopian, ending type of movies over the last month. And every book I'm reading now, it seems that there's some element in there that has some element of some sort of plague or thing that's happening.
Well, thank goodness you don't remember Outbreak because it was pretty bad. But let's move on. On.
Sounds good to me.
Yes. I will say this, that it is going to be something interesting as more states open up more businesses, more related industries. And until a vaccine is created and widely distributed, it's still going to be a very much different world for us in the near future. And the way we see basketball games or any type of sports is going to be vastly different than what we're used to. But the NBA, realistically, there's the door's kind of open. It's a little crack opening up. There's a little bit of light coming through, and you can start to see some type of hope that the season, can be salvaged in some form or fashion. So I'm hoping that will be the case. I know we'll know more in the next couple of weeks as all this starts to open up. If we truly have a horrific second wave of illnesses and deaths and things of that nature that prompts us to go back into what we're doing now. And if that's the case, that could be a step back for everyone in society, including the NBA. But if it goes forward in a progressive, gradual, constructive fashion where you're looking at the science of it, you're looking at the statistics, and you're looking at the data, and you're not going off by your gut or your feel, you're just going ahead and seeing what's out there, how it is as far as the world as it is when you open up little by little, piece by piece, and you can start going ahead with restrictions and with social distancing, try and get some semblance of everything back into somewhat of a reasonable order, so to speak. So I'm hoping for that, but we'll see what happens for the NBA. I see a crack there that's opening, so I see the opportunity for the NBA, if everything works out in the next 2-3 weeks, to start thinking about a realistic possibility of getting this season underway again.
I think that there's such a huge motivation for the NBA to do that it's, I almost think that it's separate from everything else, because I think it's part of the solution that we want to see, which is a return to some form of new normal. And the amount of money that's involved between the players and so forth, maybe a month ago, nobody could have conceived of the NBA isolating players for 2 months, for example, in Las Vegas, which is what it might take in order to safely, put on NBA finals. I think the chances are pretty high that unless we have a national rebound where we really have some major things happening where all of a sudden it looks like we're going to have 120,000 deaths as a result of the virus instead of 60,000 deaths. It's going to take something horrific like that. And I would hope that despite the dysfunction of the federal government, that they would put the clamps down everywhere hard and fast if we start to see any type of relapse that's going to cause a rebound that's going to cost people's lives. All of this talk about how you have to balance the economy with preventing lives from people from dying, and feeling that there is some sort of equation that you can balance and flip there. that says that, the economy is worth so many lives. When that comes down to the reality, I don't think that even Donald Trump is willing to make that sacrifice.
Well, we'll go ahead and keep an eye on things here at the Lakers Fast Break and keep on continually giving you updates on what's going on with the NBA. And while you're at it, just stick tuned, listen to all of our great episodes. I mean, we've been producing a lot of content out there on this channel, not only LakerTom, but like I said, all the great NBA draft coverage right here at the Lakers Fast Break.
Why don't we spend a few minutes talking about the draft? I'm
there you go.
I haven't had a chance to listen to all of the great podcasts that you put together, Gerald. But how about a little synopsis of what you see for the Lakers? Assuming that we were going to keep that player, let's say that we were able to trade Kuzma and our draft and save our draft pick and actually have a need for that. Who is the guy? Who are the players that seem to be on everybody's draft board that could fall to number 29?
If he's there, I think the Lakers would be thrilled to have Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt. Got injured, knee injury, but just probably, I think, one of the best, if not the best shooter in the draft. 6'6", good size, can play a small forward or a shooting guard position. Looks like someone that could rotate to either point, but basically you're getting him because he can shoot, and he can shoot very well. Statistically, he was one of the best college shooters coming out for the NBA draft. So if he gets his knee right now, some signs are pointing to that his knee could be ahead of the progress, so that by next season he could be ready to play in some form or fashion. And if you're looking at that type of individual that can play with LeBron now, it's got to be someone who can fill it up. And that's something that you see almost in every draft. There's not many players that can fill up the rock as much as possible or as needed, something that gets developed over time. But those few shooters are going to be a hot commodity. And even with the knee injury, I'm not sure he's going to be there, but I know the Lakers are eyeing him as someone that if he does fall because of the knee injury that he sustained in Vanderbilt, that it could be very desirable, because you can't teach a good shooter right away. It takes time to develop that skill. So if you have that,
you got to have a reason why he would slide to us.
Yeah, and that would be the reason is people are worried about. Yes, and right now we're not at a point in the CBA because the agents have so much power, and this is something we've also talked about on our shows and our episodes, is that these agents have so much power and they wield so much power. They're not giving medicals out to every team. They're only giving medicals out on these players that they're representing out to specific teams that they want, which I think is unfair. But I know that's a sticking point for the NBA.
As long as it works in the Lakers' advantage, it doesn't. I don't mind that.
Well, yes, but still, some people, when you're investing millions of dollars, you need medicals on a player. You want to go ahead, and if you see a player that you like and you're willing to risk a draft pick on them and you're willing to invest millions on them for 3, sometimes 4 years, you need to go ahead and have all the medicals. It should be a fair base, and that's something we've discussed, and that's the problem right now. And I know the one and done is also an issue, and the NBA and the NBA Players Association, the NCAA, they've all been trying to work out this deal where they get rid of the one and done, but because of that, I think a major sticking point is one side doesn't want to budge on the medicals, the other side doesn't want to budge on the one and done. That we're seeing this new, news that came out that the top draft, the top picks coming out, the top players coming out of high school are actually foregoing college. And the G League, the NBA has set up a G League team, and it's like an academy, like an instructional team in Southern California with some of the top players coming out of high school, so that they won't have to go to Australia, China, or Europe, or go to college and do a one and done where they don't even want to go to school.
Right.
They're going to go ahead, and they're going to go ahead and
$500,000 is that's a pretty big incentive to skip your freshman year of college.
That's for Jalen Green, who's one of the top 2, number 1 or number 2, depending on how you see it. In the as far as the picks coming out of high school, There are others like Isaiah Todd who are not as highly rated, but are still like top 10, top 30 type deal that are still interested in actually joining that team. They're not being paid as much, but it is incentive driven. They have to play the games. They have to make certain appearances. They have to do certain things in order to get that full, in the case of Jalen Green, $500,000. But they're also eligible for shoe contracts, and they will still get paid a scholarship to the school of their choice down the road. So they'll be able to go ahead and finish their education down the road, which is, I think, a good thing. But yes, it's something that, the NBA is now competing against all these other teams for players, and the NCAA for these players that are coming out of high school. So that to me was the most interesting thing to come out of the past 2 weeks. But you're right, as far as the draft pick for the Lakers, I probably would say the name that pops up the most, if he falls, is Aaron Nesmith, because of the fact that, again, he has good size, but he can really fill up the rock. Worried about his defense, that could be an issue. But, yeah, if he's healthy, he could be somewhat of a key contributor down the road, but someone that could develop nicely under 1 or 2 years of LeBron.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is how highly thought of Melo Ball has been.
It depends on who you talk to. It depends on who you talk to. He could be number 1. Some days he's number 3, number 4, number 5, even lower.
But he's definitely a top 5 prospect by almost everybody's book.
By almost everybody's book, but there's certain things in his game which might cause him to go down in certain eyes of certain teams.
Right.
But his vision, his vision may be as good, if not better, than his brother's. He has a more developed game than his brother does at this point in time, at this stage. Defensively, he's not quite as good as his brother as of yet. But offensively, he's bigger. He's bigger, and he has a better touch around the rim and a good floater.
That floater is becoming a shot.
Absolutely, and his brother doesn't have that shot yet.
Yep.
He's on New Orleans right now, and he's still doing okay, but he doesn't have that touch. You and I talked about this before when it concerned him. He just doesn't have that touch around the basket or around that floater that you need to have as a point guard to finish off your skills. LiAngelo has that, but the only thing is he doesn't shoot it well from outside yet. But if he can develop that, he can really be the best prospect, in my opinion, as far as this draft is concerned. But the thing is, will he be able to develop those other parts of the game even anywhere near what some of the aspects that he already has good, like, for instance, his passing, his court vision, et cetera, et cetera. So if he can shore up his shooting and his defense, he'll end up being the top player that comes out of this draft.
Yeah, he's. I've watched quite a bit of video on him, and you're absolutely right about that floater. And heck, he shoots that thing from even the free throw line at times on the move. And I'm trying to think. There's another NBA player that I was watching that also has a very similar floater like that. Who's a big man, actually. It might have been the guy from Detroit that you liked.
Christian Wood.
Christian Wood. But it's become a shot that has become more and more important, especially with the way that teams are playing off of pick and rolls, where you've got this drop coverage all the time, where they're leaving that shot open. They want people to take that shot. And that's one of the things that I think is really something that's going to benefit Melo as opposed to his brother. Lonzo just never, as you said, doesn't have that touch. And even if you're not the athlete who can go up and dunk the ball every time like LeBron James or somebody like that, boy, that little floater just freezes people on the ground and really is a terrific weapon for getting points inside it's actually a layup for the guys who know how to do that well. I'm interested to see what happens with Melo Ball, and it's kind of fascinating because it looks like that I know his father. I know that LeVar got this brand new giant house and everything, and yet with the failure of the BBB thing and all of the other problems going on, he sure somehow has managed to. Maybe it's the reality television show or whatever, but he still seems to be a financial success that's pretty amazing, especially considering the number of times that he's really sort of stepped on his own feet. But it's going to be a fascinating draft, and the fact that we have these different divergent paths that are arriving. You know, you look at that whole, I think it's the 2021 season that they expect possibly to have high school seniors and first-year players both being available in that draft, the 2021 draft. And everybody's trying to hold on to their first-round draft picks for that particular draft for that reason, that you're really going to have, you theoretically could have two classes coming in at that point in time at the same time, which would all of a sudden mean, you know, that the top 15 players on each year could be in that same draft. You could have 30 players. You could have 30 players. Even the Lakers draft pick, there's a good chance that the Lakers will end up with their 2020 and their 2021 draft picks as a result of the trade that they made for Anthony Davis. And I know that 2021 draft pick is one that they don't want to have to swap with anybody. Or they're not going to be able to swap with New Orleans because New Orleans will have a better draft position.
Well, next year's draft is going to be a lot stronger than this one.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but if you double up the people, if they all of a sudden let high schoolers come direct, which is a good possibility, then that could change everything.
I think that's why, to be honest with you, they created this G League instructional academy type deal that we talked.
Thinking that they're going to shuttle the guys into there and keep them for a year from before they get drafted?
Is because they cannot agree with the CBA on the one and done. They cannot agree with the NCAA or the NBA Players Association because, like I said, the NBA
the CBA expires when?
2 years, I think, 2 seasons.
Right,
if I'm not mistaken.
But there's a tremendous amount of pressure right now, just because of all of the decisions coming up. It's almost like they may be forced to create a new CBA at this point in time.
Well, again, like I said, the NBA wants to have medicals for all these teams.
Yeah,
the agents and the players.
Last year, it was a big issue last year that they were.
Yeah, and the agents and players don't want it, but the agents and players want, the
ability to determine where you're going to go. You know, you can narrow it down to the teams that got your medicals.
But the agents and players want the one and done to be removed. In fact, the NBA probably wants it as well. But the problem is they're arguing over that, and because of that, I think it's going to be unfortunate. Unless it's hammered out in the CBA, I think that's why the NBA instructional team was created in the first place, is because they don't see the NBA or NCAA bending on those type of one and done deals anytime soon. I hope that's the case. I mean, I hope that's not the case, and I hope they rescind the one and done. Personally, I know for some players like Zion, it helped being in Duke 1 year, but for a lot of players, they should be given the option of just basically, saying, you know what, I can go here or I can go there, like any 18-year-old. 18-year-olds these days in almost any other vocations can go, they can go to school or they cannot go to school. It's not the case with the NBA, and it's not the case with the basketball players, and that to me is kind of wrong in some sense. Well, now obviously there's development.
It's got to fall at some point in time, because at some point in time somebody's going to sue, and that's how we've gotten into free agency before. It's going to be a lawsuit from somebody saying that, hey, I have a chance to make $1 million, millions of dollars my rookie year.
But unfortunately, right now, that's the way it is. So I think this academy deal is going to be the way for at least a year or two. We'll see. It could be for a lot longer. We'll have to wait to see how it sets up continuously. As long as the Players Union, the NCAA, and NBA still fight amongst themselves, it's going to be interesting to see. But getting back to your original question in regards to the Lakers and their draft pick, they need shooting or whatever the best player is available, but they need someone that they can develop if they're going to be able to keep that individual. And if that's the case, my recommendation, if there's anybody that's out there that's decent enough that could provide a spark, it could play a limited amount during the NBA season next season. If he's healthy, it would be Aaron Nesmith. Just like that, he provides something that I think is translatable right away on the court, and that is shooting. you can stick him for 10 minutes a game out there in the corner and go ahead and learn and develop there. I think that's what
but we had a couple of guys who we thought we could do that with, this year. And the problem when you're in a win now mode like the Lakers are is that it's hard to even want to take a risk on that. I mean, we still remember Kobe Bryant in his rookie year, shooting up air balls and.
We only averaged 7 points a game, if I remember correctly.
Right, I know, but those air balls in the playoffs for a guy as clutch as that, a guy who has no fear at all of failure, it just shows that there is something to be said about having veteran players. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of looking. I would think that the Lakers would be looking, if they're going to draft somebody and they're going to keep them, they probably are looking for somebody who's been around a little longer, who's basically played 3 or 4 years rather than another 18-year-old like THT. Makes a lot of sense. I still feel it's inevitable that we're going to trade Kyle Kuzma and that draft pick for somebody. But we'll have to see.
We'll have to see. Once again, I'm speaking to Tom Wong, but you know him as LakerTom. You got to be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.net. All the great conversations there about the Lakers, the NBA, so much more. It is LakerHolics.net. Before we head on out, the talk amongst the basketball world is in regards to the ESPN documentary, The Last Dance. The first 2 episodes took place this weekend. The next 2 episodes take place this coming weekend on ESPN. Centers around the last championship year of the Chicago Bulls. And I know you don't want to really talk Chicago Bulls, and I'm not exactly a fan of them either. And I spoke to Rafael Barlow earlier in this week, and we talked about a little bit about that and the greatness of Michael Jordan, because there is no denying the greatness of Michael Jordan. And nobody says they should.
I agree with that. You can't talk about the GOAT without Michael being in the conversation and dominating.
Yeah, you can't. It's just ludicrous. I mean,
I've always been a believer that there are multiple GOATs. You just can't compare people from different generations of the game. It's impossible to do.
It is, because the argument just keeps running on and on and on.
Well, and the game different. The game's changed.
Yeah.
It's totally different. I mean, how can you can't judge? How do you judge somebody starting from Kareem? I mean, Kareem today or Wilt today? You're telling me that they still wouldn't be great? Shaq today, I mean, it's so it's impossible to say that Kobe is better than LeBron, who's better than Michael, and all of those types of things.
Well, I can just go by my eye test, and I did that when I was talking about Rafael.
What's your eye test say? Do you have a GOAT, or do you hedge it like I do?
I would probably say Michael Jordan is probably the most dominant player I've ever seen, because the way defenses treated him more than and they respected him more than anyone else.
Didn't have as much competition as some of the other people, is my opinion.
No, I didn't say the competition. I'm just saying the way I would say, like I used the inference. Let's say it was a game against the Orlando Magic, or just a regular NBA game. The way teams would center rules around him and just basically cater themselves to focus in on him so much. I've never seen a player get that kind of attention from a backcourt standpoint. And the fact that he wasn't just a center, 7-foot center like Shaquille O'Neal, it wasn't the fact that he wasn't Wilt Chamberlain or Kareem or whatnot. It's easier to get to double team and triple team guys like that out, underneath the basket like that. But it's so hard to do it, and you wonder why they do it. When people were double teaming and triple teaming Michael Jordan in the middle of a game 45 in the 82 game season. And when I would watch the games on WGN, when I would just flip channels and whatnot, and I see that, and I'm just like, that's
not only that, but Michael wouldn't pass the ball many of those times.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
That's what's really amazing about it.
But the thing is, not that he couldn't, but that in a lot of cases he wouldn't, because he shouldn't, because he was the best option for a lot of times. And the fact is, he could go and do anything like Kobe could. He could go and do anything. You want Kobe to pass more, he'll do that. On those occasions where you want him to rebound more, he'll do that. You want to basically go ahead and have him take command. He will always do that. And
you double him at the end of a game, he's going to shoot still.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron for me is close. Wilt Chamberlain for me is close. Kobe is close. Shaq is close.
Magic.
Magic,
Magic and Bird, Magic and Bird are like took away championships from each other,
Yeah, and it's so funny because I was watching the game the other day of the 1992 Dream Team in their first game against Angola, and it was 7-7, tied early in the first quarter, and Angola was feeling great for themselves. They were really confident. It was so awesome, and they were feeling so happy that they were tied with the U.S. team, and the U.S. team really looked lethargic. And this was a team I think that had Bird and Magic and Ewing, and as far as in the starting lineup right there, it's just Karl Malone in the starting lineup and all that, and they looked really lethargic to start the game. And it was 7-7, and Angola was really motivated, really happy with themselves.
And
then 45-1 later, a 45-1 run later, and the only reason they got the one is because Charles Barkley went off and got a technical. Only reason. It was just like
that's what you call a real wake-up call.
Yeah, that was a deflation. It was just interesting to see. Just once they flipped that switch, how great that team was, and it was just a great time to see. Yeah, if you check it out, it's all over YouTube. The Olympics channel has actually been throwing that out there of all the channels out there, the actual official Olympics channel. So it's been interesting to see. But yeah, before we head on out, The Last Dance has been a documentary that's out there. I mean, if you're a Bulls fan or if you're interested in that last championship run by the Bulls, it's been something to see. But before we head on out, Tom, or before we talk about all the things that's going on with Lakerholics.net, if you were to do a last dance of the season of the Lakers, which year would you choose?
Well, we've had a couple of last dances, if you will, and if we're qualifying it as having to be in the season that you won it all, your last winning season, as opposed to the next season when maybe you disappointed because you couldn't get to the dance or you lost the dance. It's probably the second, the last game that the last championship that Kobe won, and because of who we played, beating the Celtics, and I think that game where nobody could make a shot, and it was just a total defensive slugfest, and you could almost feel just in that game that the Lakers were not going to go on beyond that, and I think that's one of the things about The Last Dance. There's all of this talk about all of the trades that were being discussed then at that point in time. Scottie Pippen leaving and Jordan, having reached a point, and then all of the rumors going around about the gambling things and all of those things that came back to haunt the team. I think a lot of those things sort of make the season, and that's where all of the drama comes from, the 10 episodes that they're going to milk out of The Last Dance. That was an incredible thing, a three-peat, the second three-peat to be able to do, which was the crowning glory on Michael's career. I was always sorry to see him put a uniform on for the Washington Wizards, for goddamn sakes, I've always hated that. I hated Joe Montana playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. There ought to be a law against that, and thank God Kobe didn't end up playing for the Suns or something like that. But you don't want to see Michael Jordan wearing anything other than a Bulls jersey. I never wanted to see Kobe Bryant wear anything but a Lakers jersey. And the thoughts and the possibly going to the Clippers or something like that was just like, almost like a violation of just a violation of the basketball gods. So I think that Kobe's last championship, the fifth championship of him, was the closest thing that I see toward it being the last dance. You could also look at the last three-peat championship with Shaq, because you knew those guys were just, you knew that they're inevitably that was going to tear something apart and something was going to happen. But I was still shocked when I can remember exactly where I was when I heard the news that they were going to trade Shaq, and then bam, a couple of days later, it actually happened, and it was like, my God, how could you do that, So those are our two versions of The Last Dance, in my opinion.
Well, mine wouldn't be a last dance per se. Maybe you could say the last of the 1980s championships the Lakers won. That would be something you'd look into. But for me, it would be if you were to cover any year, and not let's call it a last dance per se, but if you were to cover any year, I think I mentioned to Raphael on our last show, that was the 2001 year. The year that they were so dominant, the best team, I think, ever in the NBA playoffs because they
Injuries,
were so dominant.
man.
Yeah. Whether 16-1, 16-1, right. I think was the deal. And I'll tell you what, they were dominant. The only team that stopped them for a game was Allen Iverson. And he had, the Philadelphia 76ers, and he had to have a terrific,
phenomenal game, an unbelievable game.
Yeah.
Him stepping over Tyronn Lue will always be sitting there in my mind, man.
Yes. But still,
that should have been 16-0.
Yes.
Should have been 16-0.
You're right. And it took an overtime in order to do that. So, that team I would love to have covered in more detail and depth like a Last Dance because I think that is, even though they had an unremarkable regular season.
Right.
Okay. Let's just put that. They just were cruising the entire season.
But now I was looking at the Last Dance thing as being something involved with the controversy that things are coming to an end,
Well, you can also look at okay, if you wanted to go from controversy, I would say it's the year that they didn't win in the finals against Detroit. Because that's
the hamstring year, man.
Yes. The Karl Malone issue, yes. I just will say that, if that's the year, I would cover that year because you started to see the deterioration of the Lakers, the deterioration of the relationship between Kobe and Shaq. If you were to cover any last year per se, I would go that one. But if I was to cover any other year on a documentary, I would definitely go with 2001.
Yeah, that was a very disappointing year, because we thought that was going to be a year that was going to be great, and had we would have had a couple more championships, and we would have won a championship that year, and then when Magic and Byron got injured, that was another year that I thought we should have won a championship if it hadn't been for those injuries, and of course there's the Warriors who can look at last year and say, if we hadn't had both Clay go down but injuries are part of the game, and you never know what's going to happen. It's you hate to see them during a playoff series like that to really change the whole complexion of the game. Did you see the one of the things? Jumping to another subject, there was a great article by The Athletic where they were quizzing Laker fans on what did they think of management, what did they think of who was the best Laker player ever, and on through the whole things. And there were some interesting things. One of the things I jumped on was 80% of the Laker fans believe that were the season to be continued, the Lakers would win the championship this year.
3 words: woulda, shoulda, coulda. But I like
not yet. You can't say those 3 words yet, man.
Well, back before
right.
What you were saying. But with I actually like the poll by Loyola Marymount that they conduct every year on sports teams, and the Dodgers and Lakers alternate seemingly every year on who is the more popular team in town. And this year it's the Lakers. I wonder why. They're doing well.
Kobe Bryant was the most popular Laker player, second to Magic Johnson. Atop of Magic Johnson.
But it's so funny
because understandable.
What was with the Lakers and Dodgers? The Dodgers have a loaded team. They've been in the World Series the past 2 years. They've got a team
but they haven't won.
But they have. Well, hold on. They haven't won yet. But they've been in the World Series past 2 years.
They were cheated by the Astros.
They've had they cheated. But anyways, the team is loaded. The team looks like it's the favorite. And here's a favorite in Vegas. It looks like they're the favorite to go ahead if the Major League Baseball season gets underway to go ahead and win it all. They look even more loaded than the past 2 years. The Lakers, they're doing well. You know how well they've done this year. First place in the Western Conference. They've beat the top 2 teams over the past weekend that they got the chance to play them. things that they could look like a real NBA favorite for the NBA title. It's funny how both teams are doing really well, and of the two, when they're doing really well, it's the Lakers that are more popular. Now, in those years that the Lakers weren't doing so popular, of course, you're going to see the Dodgers probably come out on top because that's the way fickle fans are. But in alternating years on this Loyola Marymount deal, it's funny how when both teams are doing well, that the Lakers appear on top.
Well, who was it? Somebody had a Clippers versus Lakers thing as to, it was a poll on the working class people in Los Angeles, because the Clippers have this new campaign where they're the working class team. Well, the poll came out that 80% of the working class people in LA are Lakers fans, and 5% were Clippers fans. The other 15% must have been, Knicks fans that just moved out here or something. But I thought that was a very representative comparison between the Lakers and the Clippers. You might save that stat for your Clippers friend.
Well, no, it's okay. I don't want to rub it in him. He's a really nice guy. Anthony Barber, he's just really a nice guy. Don't want to talk smack to him because, again, if there's any Clippers fan out there that doesn't deserve smack, it's him, because he knows his NBA, and I truly appreciate him on the show. But you know what? Maybe I'll give him a little bit of Clippers jib once again. But it was so funny that in that same Loyola Marymount poll, the Chargers barely even qualified, and the Rams didn't do a whole lot better. Sucks to be a Chargers fan right now. That's all I can say.
Boy, the Rams, though, the Rams were at one point in time a real favorite in Los Angeles. The fearson forced them.
There's a reason why they left to St. Louis, and there's a reason why they played in Anaheim. Let's go there. They were at Memorial Coliseum, then they went to Stadium, then they left Southern California altogether. I mean, there's a reason why they left,
right?
And then there's a reason why they came back. So,
but it's kind of funny because you look at that thing, and what is it with football in LA? The Raiders, they moved down to LA and then they left.
It's Al Davis. He just gets the deal.
Oh, wait, it can't be Al Davis because you got the Rams, the Chargers. Al Davis now. You got the Rams, the Chargers, and the Raiders.
It's a son now.
Can't support one of them.
Well, with the Chargers, San Diego didn't want to build a new arena. Didn't want to build a new stadium. So out you go, which was stupid on the Chargers. Why would you ever leave San Diego? I don't care. They could be playing on a high school field. It's San Diego. Such a beautiful area out there. I wouldn't leave personally, but that's just me. But that's a neither here nor there. But again, it goes back to woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Well, do you think the Chargers are going to become they're the only team in LA now, right?
No, they're both the football teams. They're both going to be at that brand spanking new Hollywood Stadium, the Hollywood Park Arena, Hollywood Park Stadium. Yes, so they're going to be playing there, sharing that, sharing that stadium, which is going to be the same.
But it's so funny when you think of the history of how the Dodgers and how the Lakers have dominated their sports. And then in football, you look at LA and football, and it's like, it's a conundrum, man.
They're going to have two teams sharing the stadium there. They're going to have two teams for a little while sharing the arena at the Staples Center in LA. Although the Clippers are going to move out. I know Steve Ballmer bought the Forum, but he's going to keep that alive. Thank you, Steve. By the way, I appreciate it.
Well, they'll keep it alive for a couple of years, and then if it doesn't make a lot of money, he'll shut it.
It's down. As a music center. It is the acoustics on that place now. It's been retrofitted. Just is truly amazing. And they're going to build a new arena just off the in that area next to the Forum and next to the Hollywood Park Stadium. So you're going to build an all new arena for the Clippers. So God bless them. Enjoy, and we'll be at the Staples Center.
They'll still only get 5% of the fans in LA, as far as I'm concerned.
That's what Loyola Marymount says, not us.
Yeah.
Well, before we head on out, my friend, we've got a couple minutes left. LakerTom, aka Tom Wong from LakerHolics.net. You got to go ahead and update us on what's going on with LakerHolics.net.
Well, things are everybody's pretty hunkered down. There's been we stopped the political talk and I've focused on basketball. I've tried to become the pointing out the silver linings and everything and so forth. We've been going through a lot of comparisons. Had some good discussion on comparison. There was an article out by somebody where they were comparing current players with previous players. Who's the current, Kobe Bryant versus so-and-so, who's AD versus who's Giannis's lifetime or former player that would compare to him and so forth. So we've had some good discussions on that. There's been some talk about the various options for the playoffs and so forth. I think most of the fans are thinking pretty positively that we are going to have a chance to fight for the championship. There's still a lot of Kobe Bryant stuff. I thought it was a wonderful gesture by Pau Gasol to send flowers to Vanessa on her anniversary with Kobe, or what would have been their 19th wedding anniversary. And I thought the WNBA, taking Gianna and the other two girls that died in the helicopter crash and making them honorary draftees for the WNBA was a great gesture. I know Shaq was not going to, and I guess there's another big honoring of Kobe coming up, and Shaq didn't even want to go through it just because of the anguish of reliving all of the times that they've shared together and so forth. So there's still a lot of things talking about Kobe Bryant and the change, what a change it's been. When you combine Kobe plus the suspension of the season, boy, it makes for an NBA season like no other that you've ever seen. So it'd be good if we can have a conclusion to that season and have the Lakers win a championship. And I'm still one of those people that think that before it finishes, the Lakers want to win this one for Kobe. It'd be a way to go out perfectly for the end of his career and the end of the season. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to a point where we can really start talking about basketball. It doesn't look like the draft is going to happen anytime soon. They haven't announced any changes as to when the draft is going to happen and free agency and all of that stuff. And I think all of that is just tied into whether or not the season is going to resume and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that. I'm hoping for good news just so that we can watch basketball again. And frankly, if we're able to watch basketball again, it's probably a good sign that we've been able to get control of the coronavirus pandemic. Because if we don't get control of that, then basketball and anything close to a new normal is probably out of the books at this point in time. So still working on the new site. I'm hoping that maybe by next week you'll be able to be one of the beta testers. It's coming along fine. We're just working on a couple of widgets to be able to control some of the things so that we at least have, in addition to a whole bunch of new features, all of the old features on the site where people can come in and immediately see who's been on the site, who's on the site right now, what the most recent comments were. You can hover over the recent comments and without having to go to them, actually have a tooltip come up and tell you what the comment was. So we're working on finishing off a lot of that stuff. It's like everything else is slowed down to a crawl. Just hard to get people to, I'm working with the developers in India basically at this point in time, simply because they're the most economical. And so, you've got this little tiny space in the evening when it's a realistic time when both of you are awake to do things. And that's a slow and timely process, but we're probably a week away from having at least the major portion of the site completed and ready to go. And other than that, just trying to continue to write articles for Medium and continue to post information and keep everybody on Lakerholics.net up to date on what's happening, to try to encourage people to get in conversations. It's harder to do that nowadays because there's no basketball happening and everything is so up in the air. So the core number of people, we usually have around 100 people that are that are constantly on the blog, and now we're probably down to the 20 or 30 people. And there's some days when you feel like there's only 4 or 5 people on there. So it's difficult to, everybody's struggling to try to find a way to keep the interest up and to try to generate hits and conversations. And you'd think that, everybody has so much time at home, and yet in some ways, I think that a lot of things have changed, and just in our whole everyday existence. For you, it's a lot different because you've got all sorts of things going on, and now you've got your kids at home. So you've got that extra added element that isn't the same as it is, and yet for a lot of people, a lot of people is all of a sudden, they got their kids at home and they got an opportunity to spend time with their kids that they never had before because they don't have a job, or they're working from home, which even then gives the same situation that you're in, that you've got all of these other things to do. I've enjoyed the time that I've been able to spend with my wife, and I miss being able to spend time with my grandkids and my son and daughter-in-law. But at least, we see them every day. They'll come down and stand on the deck, and we'll talk through the sliding glass door, and they'll send us TikToks to try to duplicate and copy and send back to them. And but it's going to be a whole new world coming up for us, and I'm interested to see what happens. I think that you got to just find the silver linings and everything, and move forward. And I'm thinking that we're on a good stead, both in trying to get past this coronavirus pandemic, and I think also in trying to get the basketball season going again. Maybe even baseball. The new talk about the Yankees playing in a whole different division now with this grapefruit and splitting the, I guess it's the Florida versus Arizona spring training venues that are controlling that situation. And sports is probably going to be a whole lot different. I mean, it's going to go back to the basics that we all used to do, which is basically it's going to be 5 guys against 5 guys on the court, and you're playing. You don't have fans out there. You got another team waiting for next, sitting out there, and you're really playing the game against the 5 guys on the court without all of the theatrics that go into what we now know as an NBA game just because of the fans. You're not going to see, you're not going to see Jack Nicholson in the stands when the Lakers play next time, and it's going to be a lot different game, and it'd be interesting to see how it works in the broadcast, and how the are they going to allow you to hear all of the trash talk that's going on during the game? Are they going to lighten the load as far as allowing players to trash talk during the game and allowing players to try to intimidate other players and so forth? So it'd be an interesting situation to see all of these things, and I'm looking forward to them all.
Once again, you can find out his thoughts today, not only on his article on medium.com, but also as well LakerHolics.net. Be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.net. And also for us, if you have any questions for anything in regards to the NBA drafts, I can talk to our experts or myself or LakerTom, TJ, who's still with us and obviously wants to get back on the show. He's indicated as such. Just go ahead and you can send us an email LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. You can send us an email there, or at LakersFastBreak on Twitter. LakerTom is, of course, at LakerTom on Twitter, so you can send him a message directly if you have any questions on the Lakers or LakerHolics.net, or just go ahead to LakerHolics.net and just join up and be part of that conversation today. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. Cannot thank you enough for the chat. As always, forward to our conversation next week. Also looking forward to later this week, the NBA draft with all those great NBA drafters. I'm so looking forward to it. I'll tell you what, it's just been a great episode indeed. I cannot thank you enough. Any last thoughts on the way?
Are you going to get to make the pick for the Lakers? It's a big question.
No, I know that's already been said, but that wouldn't be right unless it falls naturally. We're basically going to take names out of the hat. I'm going to probably say, you know what, I cannot pick first, but
how many guys? 5 guys or 4 guys?
5 guys, including myself.
5 guys. So the Lakers are going to be 29th.
So I would have to pick like 4th in the series. So if I get another number 4 pick, but I'm going to try and make it fair. I know there's also Stone Hansen is a huge Lakers fan as well, so I don't want to go ahead and do something unfair that he would
Well, you
like.
got to
So.
then both of you maybe should make the 26th and 27th picks so that you can make sure that whoever's available at best at that spot gets number 29.
Who knows? I might trade for some oil at this point in time. So it's pretty cheap. In fact, you know what? After this show, I think I'm going to go to Costco. According to what people are talking about on the comments, I can get paid just by going to get gas at Costco.
You don't need to work now. You can just fill your car with gas, drive around and use it up and go back and get more.
Exactly. Well, actually, not so exactly. But my friend, it's been great talking to you again right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.